We're back! On this episode, we're going to tackle the electronics. Welcome back to yet another episode of Project Redline. And with most of the fabrication out of the way, it's time to turn our attention to the electrical side of the car.
Yeah, that's right. So in preparation for this, we've stripped out every wire, plug, connector, fuse you can imagine and give us a fresh starting bed so we can start from scratch.
The electrical system is definitely the brains and nervous system of any car. They dispatch commands for how long, when to do, what to do, you name it.
Yeah, spot on. Now, when it comes to the ECU, we wanted to take all the emotion out of this choice. When it comes to ECUs, they're obviously got a very cult following. People support their brands blindly without even actually using some of these products sometimes. So they'll look at someone who's paid to use it or just a big fancy marketing campaign and make their decisions based on that, and then also defend their brand to the hills. They might not even use the brand, but they'll say, this is the best, we love this brand and that. So we've decided to take all that emotion out of it and do what 99% of people out there should do, and it's ignore everything you read on Facebook.
It's pretty easy to work out what would work best when you break it down. It's a 2-rotor engine, it's turbocharged, it's on E85 fuel, it's drag orientated, it's got an auto trans and a cable throttle body.
Now with those parameters, searching the world for real world results, you come down to basically one choice, and that's MicroTech EFI. The reason behind that, just about every single 13B drag racing orientated car and the fastest in the world are running the MicroTech ECU. So as they say, winning form is good form, and we made our choice, made a call to MicroTech, and they shipped us an LT16C ECU to whack in the car.
Being a drag car, there was something else we wanted, and that was a dash screen and data logger. MicroTech also have the solution here, and we've selected to run their smaller LTC data dash. This dash will communicate with the LT16C over the CAN network, whilst also gather data from these support modules. Each of these has a specific job, be it wideband air-fuel ratio, exhaust gas temperature or EGT, as well as this expansion box, which gives us the ability to log and monitor up to 8 other parameters. So with the ECU and all the supporting hardware selection made, it's time to find them a home. It's time to make a custom dashboard.
So the inside of this car's looking pretty sad and sorry for itself. As you can see, no dash, no electrics, no seat, no steering wheel even for that matter, so it's a pretty sad and sorry sight. We do have a roll cage and that's about it. First step we're going to do here is just start building from scratch. So we'll make a dash, an aluminium dash at a 2mm alloy. We'll bend that up and we'll just mount that here, and then from there we'll be able to mount our electronics to it and start wiring up the whole car, and then we'll work back basically. So we'll do the dash, then we'll mount our seat, we'll mount our race seat here, Pro 4 safety race seat, and then we'll probably mount shifter and things like that, parachute cable, all that will come after. But we'll start with the dash now, just so we can get something in here that we can mount all our electronics to, and then start wiring all the electronic devices up. Okay, so we've folded our dash over, we've laid it in the car, and we've got the rough sizing now that we need. The next job is to basically space out all the components we've got here. So we're just going to lay all the MicroTech components we've got on our dash, just so we've got easy access and we can quickly observe what's going on with each one. So we've got our LT16C ECU, exhaust gas temperature module, the input 8 box, which is the CAN bus expansion box, LSU 4.9 wideband sensor box, and the CAN hub, which all these devices connect into to share the communications. And then we've got our display data logging dash over here. So next step is to we'll drill holes in here. We'll use some riv nuts so we can mount everything on there, and then yeah, we'll mount it all in and see how it fits in the car, and then start running some wires. So what we'll try and do is we'll wire up all of these products so they're as one piece on the dash. So when we install the dash, it's already all basically wired up, and there's just a couple of plugs we need to connect up to. So I'll get those holes drilled now. So we've installed all the products in the in our aluminium dash for now. We've laid out everything that'll pretty much run through the input 8 or all the CAN bus modules for now. So you've got your EGT wideband, oil temperature, trans temperature, drive shaft speed, trans pressure. We've got fuel and oil pressure over here, but they'll actually run through the ECU. First step is just to make sure that all the stuff is working, all the boxes are actually working, which they are. We cycled through the dash and they're all working fine. What we'll do next is basically, I want to run this dash on its own plug, so you can, we can put all the wiring in the car, and then this dash just goes in as one piece, and then plug a couple of plugs together, and then it's all separate. So we'll look at getting all this terminated onto a couple of big Deutsch plugs. These wires here from our input 8 box, they go to our 2 temperature sensors and 1 of our pressure sensors, and also our speed sensor. I want to cut them off about here, and then I'll terminate it with one of these style plugs. There's a motorsport style connector. And it just means that if we ever need to take the dash out, it just makes it a lot easier to install it, because it just means I'm unplugging one cable and I don't have to chase these all the way back to wherever the sensors are. It's important to label your wiring diagrams. So we're going to cut these wires off, but and then we're going to terminate it into this plug. But I want to know what each one of those wires is. A bit hard to see, but these are all individually numbered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So if we run, say, this wire to pin 1 on this connector, we'll just label on this wiring diagram that that's gone to 1. So then when we do need to terminate the other side of the connector, we know that it goes to that exact sensor. The easiest thing to do will be to remove these plugs one by one. We'll just crimp these first. It's going to be a case of us writing down what we've got going to what. So if we start at this large 8-pin plug, we've got red, green and black. So we might do red, green and black. We might do 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so we have red as number 1. Numero uno. 1, red. These just simply push in right here, take it easy. You see it come out there and you see the tab get pushed back. Keep on pushing it and you'll just hear that little click and see it push down, so it's great. Green is a 2. To lock this in place, we simply use this locking collar and click just to tidy it up and close it all off. What we can do is heat shrink that on there. Alright, so that's it. That's a much more compact version of what we had before. Now we can neatly install this back into our input 8 box, and then we can install a whole dash basically as one unit. So what I want to do now is start working on the actual ECU loom. So we use a firewall plug to disconnect both sides of the loom. So one end will be engine bay, one end will be inside the cabin. So what we have to do now is work out how many of the wires from this MicroTech loom will actually extend into the engine bay. So what we'll do, we've got the MicroTech wiring diagram here, and we'll just go through all these wires now, and we'll probably just tape off the wires that'll actually stay inside the cabin, because there's wires like this white wire we use to be the trigger on the relay to stage our fuel pumps. This wire will be to turn our thermofan on and off. So things like that, these wires will be going to a relay that's inside the cabin, so obviously they won't go to these firewall plugs. So we'll probably just, what we'll do is we'll take them out the loom and just sit them down here. They'll be used for power distribution, earthing and things like that. Right, so we've cut our loom to length. So we've got our firewall pass-through plug. These things have got 19 pins each, so we've just run 1 to 19 here, 1 to 19 here. We've got a certain amount of wires left in the loom that we've cut to the right length to suit in the cabin. We've gone through which wire will basically be assigned to what plug, and now we can cut the just strip the end of the wires, terminate those, push them into this side of the plug, which is the cabin side of the plug, and this loom will be basically pretty much done. What I just want to do now is this tape, which is a really thin tape. just so it holds the loom together. Okay, so now it's just a case of pushing these male terminals in from this side of the connector and out. Then we can pretty much install this in the car and we'll start work on the engine bay side of exactly the same one. So we'll do one connector at a time pretty much.
With the cabin side of one of the connectors done, it's time to move our attention to the engine bay.
Yeah, that's right. The easiest thing here to do is to run the wires at full length in the engine bay and then pull them off onto the bench here and cut them to size and do all the hard work here on the bench.
So next step is starting to build the engine bay loom. Again, this first plug is basically just pretty much just all the injector wires. So what we'll do is we'll start working on these on a case-by-case basis. First one we'll do is primary one. And it's power. So we've got a firewall bulkhead here. You obviously loose because we don't have the retaining nut on it at the moment. And here are all our wires. So the easiest thing to do is basically just start running them to the approximate location they have to go to. This is an auxiliary secondary injector. Alright, so more loom preparation here.
So with the ECU harness taking shape, it was time to turn our attention to power distribution, namely the fuses and relays. Again, as we are looking to build this car on a modest budget, we decided to run with the tried and true method of relays and fuses. We wanted all of these located on one panel for ease of install and maintenance. We start by cutting and bending the panel, then by positioning where everything may go.
So this is our power distribution center. Everything that power will run into, fuse and relays will all be centered in this one box that we're building here. We're building this car on a pretty tight budget. It'll sit in the car like this. We'll have all our relay blocks here, which our relays will just sit in. We've got 9 up the top, and we'll have 5 down the bottom. So all the relays will just sit here, all the way across. Not sure where we're going to have it, down here or up here or something. We'll have our one of our main feeds from the battery back to the earth and then to the chassis running to here. At the back here also we've got a bus bar, so one of these will be for triggering ignition on to all these relays. We've got 16 relays here, so instead of running 16 individual wires from one point, we'll run the trigger to here and then we'll run 16 wires off here, so it just cuts down on the wiring. It makes it much easier service. We've just cut up a lot of these wires here. These will be earths, these will be ignition on triggers, and these will be power wires too. Again, writing lists is always a good thing. Most of the relays are only using 4 pins, and I've just made a list here of pin 30, which is the main power feed, pin 86, which is what will turn the relay on, pin 85 is the earth for the relay, and 87 is the output from the relay. So you can see I've just gone through and we need the MicroTech, the ECU power for that to turn on. The 3 fuel pumps will individually have each relay, because each pump might draw up to 20 amps. So most of these relays, you see these ones are rated to, this Nava relay here is rated to 30 amps. So we've got the thermo fan for the engine, we've got the thermo fan on the transcooler, we've got our MicroTech dash and our wideband sensor. We can probably use we might use the single relay for that. Our trans brake solenoid and button to turn our e-boost, turbo smart e-boost on. Our ignition coils, lights, so we're going to have a headlight and a brake light for if we run at night, we have to have those lights on. Our e-boost time function needs a relay as well. Our starter motor, so this is our ignition coil set, and TPS, which we haven't wired up yet.
A liberal coating of black wrinkle paint, and it's time to get started. Forward planning here by marking all of the relays clearly with labels now avoids any confusion at a later date. Here we've used bus bars for common ground and ignition points to simplify the wiring to the relays. We start by first running all the power to the relay blocks. Next it's the ignition wires, followed by the earth wires for the bus bar, and finally the fuses.
This is how far we are now. This is pretty much what we get. Relays, fuses, so that'll sit in the car like that, and then we've got all the wiring on the underside here. So we've got our ignition on bus bar, our earth bus bar, and then our relay packs. A few more to wire. Obviously we've got to trigger this Deutsch plug with some terminals. This will be, so it's a breakout plug. All this will be independent of the car, nothing will be wired in, so if you ever need to take anything out, it can all come out. This will go to the MicroTech. So we've got fuel pump 1, 2, 3, fan, trans brake 2-step, and ignition on.
Getting power originates from one location in the car, and that's the battery. So with this car, we've decided to keep this factory style 12 volt alternator system.
Yeah, that's right. Now, a more serious drag car might run a 16 volt battery. They cost a fair bit more, and also you have to take into factor charging and that type of stuff as well. So there's more to run through on the pits. We wanted to keep this simple, and we're also sticking to a budget. So we are sticking with your normal 12 volt lead acid battery, as well as the alternator.
We're going to mount this lead acid battery in the car, so it effectively needs to be sealed off from the rest of the cabin, which means it needs to be in an accredited battery box, if you could say that, such as this Moroso one.
What you basically get is these locking tabs which push into here, a seal and screws which will lock down the lid firmly. What you'll do is basically drill holes here and feed the cables through, and then you drill another grommet, maybe on the side or somewhere here, and feed this tube out, and then drill another grommet probably in the floor of the car and feed that tube out. And what that does is seals off this battery from the cabin. Drag racing, or any racing for that matter, cheapest form of horsepower is cutting down on weight. So that's why I've decided to go for basically the biggest battery I could find. This is just out of my other RX-7 race cars. The main reasons in that is cold mornings at a racetrack, and ethanol fuel can mean you have to crank the car over a fair few times. Little tube goes in here basically, and yeah, just vents off any excess gas that's in here that might be produced by the lead acid battery, and our tube just runs down through the floor of the car and vents that gas out to outside of the cabin.
With the battery box in, the loom's done and the fuse panel sorted, it's time to put it in the car and test fit and install. Battery cables are run as well, and then it's time for more cardboard, as we need to make a home for our master power switch and starter button.
In terms of power, this is essentially what we've got in the car. So we've got our battery, and we've got our feed-throughs here that go through the tunnel. So the tunnel is basically here, and this will be a switch here just on the center, somewhere in the center tunnel as well. So this is this part of it. We've got the firewall feed-throughs there, which will run to, say, the starter motor, and it also acts as a junction for where our fuse box is over here, where we'll also have another positive and negative. We can run those off to there. This is what we've got. These are the terminals. This is the power cable. This will be the number 2. So you can see there's number 2, which will be this one, and this is number 1, which will be this one, and this is the main earth that will go from the battery to that also. Right, so this is a template for this whole assembly. So we've got master switch, starter button, and it's just an alternator charging light. So we see where that sits in relation to the car. This isn't in the way from my elbow or anything, so it should be fine, easy to grab down, grab the starter. What I'm actually going to do is put the ignition switch up here. What I'll do now is we'll make this out of 2mm alloy, and we'll put some legs on it, and then we'll get it set for the car. Alright, so this is the, we've got master power, this is an alternator charge light, and this is our start button. Obviously we haven't put everything in place yet because we're just testing. This feels pretty comfortable, so this isn't in the way that we're going to accidentally knock it off. It's clearly well below when we're shifting gears. You need to pull the chute, so it's not in the way there. When I'm strapped in, I can simply reach back, press the starter, start the car, that's it. Just like when you turn your key to accessories or on, this will do the same job in this car. Probably going to mount this here, simply just because if for some reason we're driving, we cross the finish line, and then throttle sticks open or something like that. Our hands are here. The quickest quickest and easiest place to go to is straight there. We can. It's very easy when we first get in the car to, you know, turn the power on, start the car, and then everything else is here. Only other thing for wiring wise, we have to obviously mount the alternator now. So once we do that and put the tail shaft in, there's not a hell of a lot stopping us from actually starting the car. So real final stages of things here. So it's getting down to the business end, that's for sure.
Wiring. What a lovely way to spend a couple of weeks, conveniently compressed into a couple of minutes for you viewers.
A couple of weeks? That's pretty straightforward to me.
No worries. Well, here's some tools, and you can do the bloody next loom, alright? And what else is left on this thing before we can flick the switch?
On our next episode, we're going to take a closer look into one area that's so often overlooked on cars, and I see this firsthand every week, and that's safety.
Yeah, spot on. I guess if you're not going to go so fast anyway, it's better to look the part.
Yeah, we'll cover everything from front to back, including engine containment, parachute, what you wear, the works. Okay, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you receive notifications as soon as the next video installment comes out. Give us some feedback, write in the comments and let us know what you think. We're back! On this episode, we're going to tackle the electronics.
You could have driven a semi-trailer between the gap between those.